Today's guest on is Dr. Paul Barattiero. Am I saying that correct?
Yep.
Okay, good. I'm glad I did. He is the founder of Echo Water, which is a fantastic product that makes molecular hydrogen far more accessible. So today we're going to dive into a little bit of his story, why he created this product, but then also the benefits of molecular hydrogen, which I think you guys are going to get a lot of benefits out of. So without further ado, welcome to the show, man. Really glad you're here.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure.
Yeah. So tell the audience like who you are first off, like
hmm
and how you got into this, and why you're so fascinated with it.
So I'm Dr. Paul. I'm an ND, so Doctor of Naturopathy. And what got me in hydrogen was 20 years ago. I know that hydrogen seems new for most people, but it's not for me. I started the whole movement, me and one other person, effectively. But 20 years ago, I was married 10 years, and my wife was sick, not doing well. And so I was looking for every way to help her. And Echo Water was a result of helping her and healing her. And so the brand itself, Echo, is 16 years old. And we're the original company that made hydrogen products. And, it took me a couple years to figure out that hydrogen gas could do tremendous things in the body, and was able to help my wife with her gynecological issues, thyroid issues, anemia, short-term memory issues, energy, all kinds of things. And so, really has been a life-changing thing for our family, and now for millions and millions of other people all over the world. So it's been a fun journey, and it's been a rewarding journey.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so walk us through. Your wife was sick, and you were trying to help her. I guess how did you stumble into hydrogen? You already knew about the benefits of it, but you wanted to try it with her.
No, I didn't know anything. So I was in the world of diabetes at the time. I
Mm,
was um, I had a shoe company. We made diabetic shoes that Medicare was paying every year for people, so that we would prevent decubitus ulcers and amputations effectively. And so
yeah.
that was my whole world. My wife, from a work perspective, my wife was sick, and at that time in our marriage, she would be bedbound almost for a week every month. So it was difficult for her to do anything during that time of her menstrual cycle. And we had some friends that had an organic food store. We went to church together, and they had an organic food store. And 9/11 occurred, and clearly we know people were not going to Disney World anymore. I lived in Orlando or Kissimmee at the time, and people weren't coming to Disney World. So my friends that had this organic food store, half of their business was people coming, getting organic food for their condos. So
Wow.
their business dropped in half immediately, and they were in trouble, and they came to me for help and said, "Can you help us, financially through this situation?" And I said, "I can help you with part of it. You'll need to find someone else to help you with the rest." And so they said, "Okay, no problem." And they did find another friend, mutual friend, who helped them. And so, the typical story, it's always worse than you think it's going to be, and it's not like you're going to rebound in 3 months. Everyone thinks they are, but they don't. And so here we are a year later, 2 year later, and they hadn't paid back. And so I forgave the interest, and I just said, "Hey, don't worry about the interest anymore. Just pay the principal." And they did. Eventually, they paid it back. And so as a thank you, they took us on a cruise, my wife and I. And
Yeah.
on this cruise, they brought water for us. And I thought this was the strangest thing, to bring water on a cruise. I had been on many cruises before and never brought water, of course. And so they brought water, and I said, "What the heck are you bringing water?" They're like, "Oh, you don't want to drink the water on the ship." They jokingly called it toilet water, whatever. And I said, "Okay." And so they brought water. They brought us a little suitcase that had gallons of water in it, and we were able to have water on the ship. Now, keep in mind, my wife's first day of her menstrual cycle, we didn't choose the dates, or that wouldn't have been the case. But they chose the dates. They paid for the cruise as a gift for us. And the first day of her menstrual cycle was the first day of the cruise. And so
Mm.
driving from Orlando down to Fort Lauderdale, she was doubled over in pain in the back seat of the car and not really a good situation. We
Mm.
assumed that 7 of the 9 days of that cruise, she was going to be basically hanging out in the cabin and not enjoying the cruise. So we get on the ship. They give us our little thing of our rolling case of water. We go in the room. Jacqueline gets, in the bed, and I go to art auctions, come back. I do whatever I'm doing to keep myself busy and coming and checking on her. And so one of the times I came in, she goes, "Hey, I'm thirsty. Can I have some of that water they gave us?" And I said, "Sure." I poured myself some water, drank it. I didn't sprout wings. I didn't fly. I didn't levitate off the ground. No crazy things happened. I gave it to my wife, and she was like, "Oh, honey, my body's craving the water. Like, can I have more?" And I'm like, "Oh, sure." And she kept telling me, like, "I'm craving this. I can't stop drinking it." And I'm like, "Really? Okay." So she started drinking the water, and I told her, "Hey, I'll drink the toilet water. Um, you drink this other water." And within 2 days, she was up and around and enjoying the cruise. And we were like, "What in the world?" This was like, "Are you kidding me?"
Yeah.
So here we are now sitting at breakfast with my wife and me and the husband and wife that we were on the cruise with. And I'm like, what is this water? Like, Jacqueline's feeling better and she is able to participate on the cruise. And they're like, "Oh yeah, that's what saved our company. That's how we were able to pay you back is we put this machine in our business, and people are like buying the water by the gallon. They're lining up, like people will be 20, 30 people in line." And I'm like, "What?" And so keep in mind, this was like 2004, 2005. So 20 years ago now,
Yeah.
this was happening. And I was like, "What in the world?" And they were telling me about all these people with diabetes and all these people with all kinds of medical issues that didn't have these issues anymore. And I'm like, "Oh crap, you're scaring me with all these claims, right?" And then I'm like, what's in the water?" And they're like, "We don't know. We really don't know." And I'm like, "Oh, now you really scared me," right? Like, "Oh crap." So anyways, I just kind of brushed it off in my mind, and I'm like, "Okay." And I didn't think about it. My wife and I were on the cruise, went to Costa Rica, went to Panama Canal, all these wonderful things on this cruise. It was incredible. I held a sloth, right? Like, I mean, pretty amazing experience. We go home, we regain our normal life, and I didn't think anything else about it, to be honest with you. And next thing you know, like my wife's menstrual cycle, it's probably 6 months later now after this cruise, and my wife's menstrual cycle's normal. Like we're having our family council to plan our month, and we're like, "When's your cycle?" And she's like, "I'm on it." And we're like, "What? You left the house?" Like this is a big deal. And
Wow.
so, yeah, and I'm like, "What's going on, babe?" And she's like, "It's that water, honey." And I'm like, "The water from the cruise?" And she's like, "Well, I've been going back and getting it. I'm now buying it from them a gallon at a time. Haven't you noticed in the pantry?" I'm like, "No, I didn't notice. I'm a guy. I didn't notice anything in the pantry." So, anyways, long story short, she was doing great. And I'm like, "Oh, I got to figure out what's going on." My friends don't have a clue what's going on. They don't even know why it's helping people. No one can tell them. The dude who sold them the machine doesn't know. I mean, he's making every claim from yesterday, but he doesn't know why it's doing anything. And I just thought that was so inappropriate. So
Yeah.
I took a year and a half and did a deep dive. Again, this is 2005 to, let's just say, 2006, 2007. I just tried to figure out everything I could. I couldn't find anything. There was nothing around, nothing this, nothing that. I was I was understanding everyone was saying it was the pH of the water. I knew that wasn't true. I didn't accept that at all. It couldn't be that it was alkaline, right? That's dumb. When you I'm sorry to be rude to people who think that alkaline water helps you. The pH alone, it's impossible that that helps a medical condition or the body at all. And we can go into that a little bit later if you want to, but the point is it's impossible. for the
Hmm.
pH of water you're drinking in your stomach to have a medical benefit. So I wanted to figure out what was the mechanism of healing, and it took me a year and a half. And I was researching studies. I was researching all these papers that people would give saying this proves alkaline water, and I'm like, no, actually, the study proves alkaline water doesn't do anything. And I finally found one study. There was a PhD. One of my employees at the time was a PhD chemist, and he had a PhD in water chemistry. And I said, you're the perfect guy to help me figure this out. And I said, can you look through all these studies? Because I haven't found anything. And he found on the like middle of a study, buried on this one graph, these letters DH. And he was like, I think this is your answer right here. This is the only study of all the ones you gave me that's actually legitimate. And I think this has your answer. And I'm like, DH. And he goes, dissolved hydrogen. And as soon as I heard that, I just felt goosebumps all through my body. And I was like, that's it. I know that's right. So I began researching hydrogen. And when you know what they say, when you ask the right question, you get the answers. But until you ask the right question, you're just searching. And so here I was, I'm asking the right question, and boom, I start to find things. And I was amazed at what information was out there when you ask the right question. And guys, this was before AI. This was actually real research. You had to actually go and search and hunt and, find stuff. And there wasn't much, but what I did find was surprisingly amazing. So I then decided, okay, I'm going to focus on wanting to create a machine that will produce hydrogen that will not change pH.
Hmm.
And so in 2007, I began, and by 2009, I was fully in developing a machine. And the first generation of Echo was the Echo 7. And it was a machine that made alkaline and acid water, but it never lost the ability to dissolve hydrogen gas. And what I mean by that is these alkaline water machines, they work on electrolysis. Well,
Okay.
electrolysis is wonderful, but it has an inherent weakness that you can't get around, and that is the minerals in the water being used will bond to the electrodes in the electrolytic chamber. So the cathode, particularly, is negatively charged. The minerals are positively charged. They will bond. And
Hmm.
so
Okay.
once you have calcium bonding on the cathode, you can no longer dissolve hydrogen gas because the bubbles coalesce, they come together, they get too large, you don't have pressure and time on your side, and so they just go back out to atmosphere because the bubbles are too large. So this is the problem with the alkaline systems on the market is within a few weeks you're going to have scale buildup enough to the point that you won't dissolve hydrogen gas. Well, we had a patent where we were reversing the polarity of the electrodes so that
Okay.
they could never have calcium buildup. That was 2007, and that was the first generation. Of course, today we have proton exchange membranes. We have a totally different technology that we use to separate hydrogen and oxygen gas and water and to send the oxygen out to atmosphere and just dissolve the hydrogen gas without changing the pH of the water, which is what we were doing in 2014 and on. And so we
Right.
really had that technology already then, and we've just continued to advance and advance. So that is a very thorough story of how Echo came to be. Hopefully,
No.
everyone enjoyed that little walk in the history.
No, I definitely did. Oh, okay, so that guy that was selling the machine in the beginning, he had no idea what was going on.
He
Where
still
did he
doesn't
even
have
get
any
the machine
idea,
from?
but
So did
he
he?
he bought a machine, and the brand at the time was called the Alkalizer, and it is no longer being made. And the company that was making it is no longer around. They were a company in Japan, but they were a very small company making all kinds of products. And the last time I saw them, I went to Japan and I met with the owner, went to lunch, and they were trying to get me to take that machine. And I said, no, you don't even have hydrogen because in their own factory, I said, give me a brand new machine. I want to test it. And I tested it, and there was no hydrogen in the water
Hmm.
after they processed it. So hydrogen was was not in their water. My friend's water that helped my wife, there was no hydrogen in it. But because they were using electrolysis, the ORP, the oxidation reduction potential of water, was negative, and that was enough to help and restart my wife's gut. And that
Gotcha.
helped her. Then later, I found a different machine that did have hydrogen in the gas, and I began working with that company for a few years and grew that company. And then by 2009, I exited that company and began developing my own machine that really was just purely for hydrogen. And by 2011, Echo was born, and we were shipping machines, uh, delivering machines in 2000, December 2011. And so that's kind of your timeline. But the guy who was selling that machine, the alkalizer,
Mm,
had no medical background, had no understanding of what could be the case, why it was helping people, and really didn't hire anyone to figure it out and didn't figure it out himself. And so I didn't really respect him. Funny enough, later he came when his business was out of business, just a few years later. He came to me and asked if he could work for me, and I said, no, you
mm,
cannot, because you're kind of a problem in this industry. You're not a benefit, because
yeah.
he had already um, been out of business and was still charging people for replacement filters, but didn't have any replacement filter to send them. So he just kind of scammed people. So it was not a good situation. And I
Jeez.
was like, no thanks, sorry.
Yeah.
And so that's the history.
Man, that is fascinating. Okay, so you said a lot of really scientific things that are way above my pay grade. That I
I haven't even
absolutely
gotten started yet.
yeah. No, it's crazy. I love it. Okay, so why don't we dive into like
Okay.
what is it that's going on with hydrogen? Because yeah, let's just start there. What is it that's going on with hydrogen? Why is it so beneficial in the body? Yeah.
Okay. So hydrogen is a signal modulator.
Okay.
Its primary role in our body is to reduce or manage or modulate oxidative stress and inflammation.
Got it.
It is so critical. And just so everyone knows, that is one of the most critical things that is needed in our body, is to keep oxidation from becoming oxidative stress.
Hmm.
Because the combination of oxidative stress and chronic inflammation is disease. That's where disease comes from, is the combination of oxidative stress and inflammation. So our bodies are designed, the creator, the great engineer, whatever you want to call this individual, I call it God, and
Same.
um, I believe that God created our bodies and is a brilliant individual, much smarter than we are, and we should learn a lot from him. So the reality is, when our bodies were created, they had a hydrogen generator in them, and that's what flatulence is. So that same colon that is not exciting in our body, um, it creates gas when it ferments food. When we digest food, we use fermentation. Just like a car has a tailpipe because the excess gases are coming out once you've converted fuel into energy. Well, we do the same in our body. We have food that's fuel, and when we convert it to energy, there are gases that are produced, and we call it flatulence, and part of that's hydrogen. Well, that hydrogen that's produced is really good for our body because it manages antioxidant pathways, it manages oxidative stress and inflammation, and manages those things. Brain function, it has a huge neuroprotective effects. When we have gut dysfunction from man-made chemicals or overuse of antibiotics or stress or whatever,
Yeah.
when our gut is not functioning properly, we lose the ability to properly produce hydrogen, and people end up having the wrong bacteria in the gut, and so they're not processing food correctly and aren't creating hydrogen, and therefore we have a major issue because oxidation now rises until we have oxidative stress. And then, of course, inflammation comes to help fix that problem. And when the source problem isn't taken away, we end up with the combination that causes disease, oxidative stress and inflammation. So I didn't create hydrogen. I know that's surprising to everyone. I didn't create hydrogen. But what I did was understand the critical need in the body of hydrogen, and I made it easy to get into the body
Mm-hmm.
and began educating people. And there was really me and one other person, Tyler LeBaron, which worked with me at the time. And this was way back, many years ago. And it was him and I. He was a student at BYU, Idaho, and he was studying hydrogen. And we ended up talking. No one else was talking about this. I ended up connecting with him, and we started talking every day. And we were like, okay. And I was coming from a machine perspective, developing machines. He was coming more like I'm looking at the biochemistry of it all, and we were comparing notes, and it was amazing, right? And we basically, it's him and I that started the hydrogen industry really today. And so, you know, he's a very, very smart person, and I'm all right. And so here we go. We're educating the world, and I began lecturing on hydrogen in 2009, and everyone thought I was crazy. 2 years later, when one of the studies that was published in 2009 began to be really understood, people were like, "Oh my gosh, you're brilliant!" Right? It just took 2 years. So that's where we're kind of at. But during all that, my wife's life was changed. I was in diabetes, and I began giving people that had diabetes the water, and they within 3 to 5 days, their glucose levels were normalizing, and I'm like, "What? This is the holy grail!" Like, oh my gosh. But the reality is, it's something that's critical to the body, and the body didn't have it. And so when you give it back to the body's like, thank goodness I've been needing that. And all of a sudden, joint issues, sleep, neurologic, Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, other brain issues can be benefited hugely. Performance athletes with performance fatigue, all kinds of stuff, was
Mm-hmm.
happening. And so it was at that time, it was mind boggling for me because I was like, well, what the heck does it not do? Like every single thing I would throw at it, boom. And once I became more and more and more educated, it began to make sense because oxidation, or what we call oxidative stress, once oxidation gets outside of a normal range, it really causes all the issues in the body. That's
Mm-hmm.
where you have cellular damage. That's where you have mitochondrial dysfunction. That's where we start to have all these issues. It really is because of oxidative stress and then inflammation. So most of the pain in people's body, it doesn't matter if it's cancer, it doesn't matter. All disease comes from oxidative stress. So what became amazing and intoxicating for my mind to understand, holy cow, we can change everyone's life. We can fix all these issues everyone's experiencing. It then had a potential
Yeah.
to push people away because it seemed too easy. And
Right.
it was like, oh, I just drink this water and I feel better. Well, the people that were smart enough to do it would go, oh my gosh, he's not a nutcase. Oh my gosh, like my sleep is different the first night. My joint issues are going away. All these things. The people that were like, nah, that sounds dumb, they wouldn't even try it
Yeah.
because it sounds too simple. And they think it's stupid because they think hydrogen's already in water, or they think this. And it's really an education issue because
Mm-hmm.
clearly hydrogen is not in water or you wouldn't be able to drink it. It When water is formed from hydrogen gas and oxygen gas combining, it makes a liquid. It's not hydrogen anymore from a gas perspective. So what we need when we say something is hydrogen water, we're saying it's water, H2O, with H2 gas dissolved in that water, very much like people can dissolve other gases like carbon dioxide in water or other things. Hydrogen, and so water then becomes the delivery vehicle for hydrogen to the body. And of course, you can breathe hydrogen in through inhalation. You can take a bath with hydrogen water and absorb it through your skin. But the easiest modality is getting your hydrogen through water because it will also help heal your gut. The hydrogen will heal the gut in roughly 2 weeks. So people that have gluten and dairy intolerance won't have gluten and dairy or food allergies anymore. So all these things
Whoa.
happen. Yeah, all these things happen. And so it's again, it's intoxicatingly wonderful, but it also some people are like that's too easy. I'm not going to do it.
Yeah, of course. There's always those people.
Yeah.
Wait, so did you say that it can get rid of those intolerances, those gluten, dairy intolerances? It can
Yep.
eliminate that?
Yep, absolutely.
Wow. And that comes from healing the gut.
That comes from having the right bacteria because if we understand how the bacteria works, it or how the gut works, it's bacteria. We have two
Hmm.
main types. Now I'm oversimplifying for people here because I don't want to go over their heads, but you have aerobic bacteria and anaerobic, and if we understand that the majority of bacteria in our intestinal tract, especially the colon, should be anaerobic microflora. And of course, that's a family of bacteria. It's a bunch of them, but they're all anaerobic. And so, what happens when we take antibiotic is we destroy the environment or the terrain of the gut, the biome of the gut, and therefore we don't have the proper electrical potential. We don't have the environment anymore for the right bacteria, and so we get the wrong bacteria. Well, if we have too much aerobic, guess what? Anxiety, depression,
Hmm.
sugar, and carb cravings. If we have anaerobic microflora, then we want fat and fiber. So
Interesting.
effectively, it's not your fault. It's the bacteria in your gut that wants the certain foods that you're craving. So don't think it's you, it's your bacteria in your gut. But we can change that. So when hydrogen goes in to the gut, it can change the terrain and the biome. It can signal, it can also cause the right bacteria to begin because hydrogen is a food or a nutrient for these bacteria as well. Now,
Hmm.
if someone has SIBO, there's two types of SIBO. One of those types of SIBO is hydrogen based. And really, what small intestinal bacteria overgrowth, SIBO, is having the right bacteria in the small intestine, which is not where it's supposed to be. It should be in the colon. And so people have to be careful if they're drinking hydrogen water if they have hydrogen based SIBO. There's two types. If you don't have hydrogen based SIBO, then you're fine. If you have hydrogen based SIBO, then you'll need to drink smaller amounts of the water in the beginning until you get the colon reset. And then get rid of the SIBO in your small intestine. And you can do that through antibiotics. You can do that through other, some people do it with essential oils or whatever. I don't want to make it sound like, essential oils but the point is they can do it in that way.
Yeah.
But that's really the only thing that's a problem for people drinking hydrogen water is if they have hydrogen based SIBO. But every other gut issue, hydrogen can help fix. And it
Yeah.
really comes down to a bacterial issue. And within an hour of drinking hydrogen water, people will have better digestion because you'll have hydrogen, right? And you can't even produce stomach acid without hydrogen gas. Did you know that?
Oh wow. No, I did not know that.
HCl, right? What's the H in HCl? Hydrogen. So
Hydrogen. Yeah.
you can't produce hydrochloric acid without hydrogen. You can't do a lot of things in the body without hydrogen. So something as simple as your stomach acid. If your body doesn't have hydrogen, you can't digest properly. You can't produce stomach acid. And this is why drinking alkaline water is a problem if there's no hydrogen in that water because by drinking water that's a higher pH, you're forcing the pH of the stomach up slightly. Well, the body would normally produce hydrochloric acid or stomach acid to drop that back down, but you can't because you don't have hydrogen. And so now you've put a metabolic burden on the body. And you can end up
Wow.
having problems. And then people have to take HCl tablets and other stuff. So if you just drink hydrogen water, the pH of the water doesn't matter. And let me have some fun here. Those that are like hating on me, I don't know it because I can't hear you. But guess what? If you're hating on me, it's because you're uneducated and I'm going to educate you right now. You can choose to not believe me, that's your choice. But again, it doesn't affect my life, just yours. Understand that nothing that grows naturally on earth is alkaline. People need
Interesting.
to understand that there is no vegetable. People go, what about a cucumber? It's a 5.5 pH, right? You can go on the FDA website and get a pH chart for every vegetable that grows on the planet. And guess what? None are higher than 7 pH. Okay?
Hmm.
So, first of all, there's no such thing as alkaline foods naturally. We're drinking alkaline water, and the false story that's being told to you is that if you drink something alkaline, then your body will be alkaline. That is completely false. There is zero studies you can find that will show that. There is zero truth or proof or whatever you need to make you feel good about that. It is false information.
Wow.
And
Yeah.
but let's pretend it was. Well, what part of the body are you talking about that's going to be alkaline? Right? Every
Right.
organ is at a different pH based on its function. The stomach's never going to be alkaline because you wouldn't digest food. You would have a major issue if your stomach was alkaline.
Hmm.
This bile is a 1.5 to a 2 pH. People don't understand. It's a 1.5 to 2. And then when you add some gastric juices, let's say you're in a 3 to 4 range on average, 4 being the middle road. That's not 7, my friends. And so the point is, you putting some water is not going to affect your body.
Hmm.
The water has very little buffering capacity. The only reason it's a higher pH is because it has more hydroxides, but there's no buffering capacity with hydroxides in water coming from an electrolysis based device. So then usually when I'm talking to someone, they'll go, okay, with the blood. And I'll say, well, the blood is always alkaline. It can't be anything but alkaline or you would go into shock. And they're like,
Wow.
look at me with dumbfounded look. And I'll say, blood has to be a 7.35 to a 7.45. It's a very small window. And anytime you have a small window like that, trust me, nothing you put in your stomach is going to affect it or you'd be dead. Like everyone would be dead.
Wow.
Because think about it. And no one usually has thought about it until I bring it up and they're like, yeah, wow. But that's my job. I'm here to make you think. And so if drinking a 9 pH water, 9.5, which you won't find on the earth anywhere, by the way, if you drink a 9.5 pH and it supposedly benefits your body, then one soda would kill you.
Why is that? What do you mean?
Soda's a 2.
So it would just send you completely the other direction.
It would send your body into shock because
Yeah.
if what they're saying is even true 1% that putting something alkaline in the stomach will make the blood alkaline, well, if putting something acid in the stomach would make the blood acid, and so you would die because you would go into shock. And
I
and
see.
and here's the deal: water has no buffering capacity. Soda does. Soda has a lot of chemicals that keeps it at its pH.
Hmm.
It's difficult to change the pH of a soda. It's very easy to change the pH of water. And if someone doesn't believe me, and it's typically someone selling alkaline machines, take some of the water out of your machine, put it in a little beaker or a glass, put some of your pH reagent, put a few drops of lemon juice in it, and watch how fast the pH totally changes.
Hmm.
That's what's happening in your stomach. Your stomach acid is far more buffering than lemon juice, but lemon juice, a few drops will plummet the pH of your pH 9.5. So you 100% know what's happening in the stomach when that water goes in the stomach. It is not surviving. The pH is not surviving. And
Interesting.
so I want people to understand it's not about the pH. The only reason alkaline water machines were ever beneficial is because of hydrogen gas when they're brand new. When they are brand new, they produce a ton of hydrogen gas. The largest company in the world that sells alkaline machines, in their warranty, it says you have to clean that machine every 2 weeks if you want hydrogen. Now, at least they put it in there. Most other companies didn't, but the reality is nobody's cleaning their machines every week or two. And so what I did was really develop the perfect machine for hydrogen that you don't have to clean to have hydrogen. No problem cleaning it. Clean. Be a clean freak. I love it. Do that. But you don't have to have hydrogen. In fact, you never lose hydrogen production in an echo device. You never lose
Yeah.
that. You will
Yeah.
be dead and gone. So I hope that helps people.
No, I mean, it's super helpful. It's a lot of things. I mean, I've never understood the whole thing behind alkaline. I've heard the different theories. I never got on the bandwagon of drinking alkaline water or any of that because
Right.
in my head I was like, something about it didn't make sense, but I was just like,
Right.
whatever. Like I just shrugged it off. I just didn't care.
Right.
Although one question I do have, and maybe this gets us down a rabbit hole. I think you answered it, and you'll close it up pretty quickly. But coffee for me, subjectively, I've always put a little bit of some sort of creamer in coffee, whether it's almond milk or whole milk or whatever, to make it a little less acidic. Because I felt like when I did drink it, it did sort of mess with me. But I think you would say that it's not pH. It's not messing up my pH. Maybe it's just whatever. But
Well,
something about it for me, I just don't like.
yeah, coffee's acid because coffee beans, you know, are that. And
Yeah.
some people like smoother coffee. Some people don't like the bite of coffee going into their stomach. Uh, it's just like sometimes milk will calm your stomach, right? Sometimes milk will calm your stomach. Um, but yeah, that's a so I mean you have acid in a car battery. That's very different than the pH scale saying something's acid at a 5.5 pH. That's a cucumber,
Right.
right? Or alkaline water could be a 9.5, or acid water because of hypochlorous acid could be a 3. But that's very different than battery acid or
Yeah.
something. So we have a term called acid, and it can mean very different things. You know, you can bathe in acid water because you have an acid mantle on your skin that's protective to keep all the critters out. But that's very different than bathing in battery acid, right? So there's a very, even though the word is the same, they mean very different things.
Yeah.
And so we
Or
need to make
taking,
sure that we know what we're talking about.
yeah.
Um,
Or
I,
even,
I, I'll, yeah,
I was gonna
go
say,
ahead.
or even taking drops of acid in the eyes, like they used to do back in
Oh,
the 70s
oh
and
my gosh. Yeah,
80s.
yeah. It's like I got cataracts now, but the interesting, but I felt good doing it. So the whole point is, I want people to understand you're not feeling better because of pH. pH is not the thing. It's hydrogen gas, and that's been proven. In fact, there's over 1,400 studies today that are showing hydrogen to be beneficial with over 200 disease models. You cannot find a single legitimate study showing that higher pH water does anything for the body. You can find studies that say alkaline water containing hydrogen gas can help. But again, it's the hydrogen gas that's doing it, not the pH of the water, which is interesting because what does pH stand for?
I forget. What
Potential
does it stand for?
hydrogen.
Oh, interesting.
That's what pH stands for. Is so pH so pH scale, the opposite side is POH, potential hydroxides. So I mean, you are talking about hydrogen when you talk about a pH scale. But
Yeah.
pH of water is more about hydrogen ions. When it says potential hydrogen, it's actually talking about hydrogen ions, which is H plus,
Wow.
not what we're putting in our water. We're putting H2, which is neutral.
Gotcha.
I don't know if that
Yeah.
helps, but
It definitely helps. I can tell that you are well read.
I've been doing this for a little while.
I absolutely love it. This is one of the reasons why I love doing podcasts like this because it's great to just learn these things. I don't have to be an expert in it, but I get to just absorb the knowledge and share it with people. It's really cool.
Oh yeah.
Okay, so talk about your product though. So how did you design it? Like so, how did you design it so specifically and the iterations over the years? And so now when someone buys this product, like how do they know they're getting exactly what it is they need out of it, which is the hydrogen?
Great question. Um, there's so much misinformation out there that this is really at the heart of the matter because you have a combination of three types of people out there. You have people that have no clue and they just poo poo it or talk negative about it because they didn't take the time to learn and they think it's too easy. So then they go tell everybody, that's crazy, right? We've all met those people before. Usually at Thanksgiving dinner, when you're talking about natural medicine, they're the ones going, what are you freaking talking? So
Yeah,
then,
exactly.
then, and usually it's your family. So, um, love family, but so the
Hmm.
next group of people are the people selling something.
Hmm.
And they're always tearing down the market leader. They're tearing down someone that has a real product to sell them a crappy product or sell them something they can make more money on. And so they start telling people crazy things that are not scientific at all. For example, there was a podcast on Joe Rogan here recently again where the individual on the podcast was saying that the hydrogen bottles out there will stop working after 6 months. It's just completely false. But that wasn't enough. He said, I tested them. That's not true. He never tested them. And I know this individual very well. He sells our products, you see. But recently he introduced tablets. And he's making a lot more money on tablets. And so all of a sudden, we gotta talk about how the tablets are better. Well, instead of giving a fair, appropriate scientific message, we have to drive some doubt in people's minds and talk about the bottles like something's wrong with them. Well, he sold 100,000 bottles, and unfortunately, now he wants to make money on tablets. So he's
Hmm.
got to tell people that tablets are better. But tablets are not better. They are a legitimate way to get hydrogen, for example, but they are the most expensive way to get hydrogen. And you're going to spend $200 a month to get hydrogen for a family of four. Like, who should be spending $200 a month to have one use per day per family member when they can take and purchase something like this and use it for 5 years because it has a 5-year warranty? And one of the comments in there was that the hydrogen has degradation. For example, that he was saying that after 6 months, the hydrogen levels will lower. That's completely false.
Hmm.
If you simply go on Chat GPT and type in how long will a proton exchange membrane last, it will tell you 2,000 to 5,000 hours of use. You're using this 10 minutes at a time. So
Right.
this bottle, 10 minutes at a time, that's a lot of uses in 2,000 hours. So I tell people 1,000 hours at peak performance before you lose any performance. That's 3 times a day for 5.5 years. This has a 5-year warranty. So guess what? The information is false. There is no bottle that's stopping. Now, there are scam bottles from China that have
Hmm.
electrolysis in them that are not really producing hydrogen, and they're producing chlorine and hypochlorous acid and all kinds of crazy stuff. Those you should never buy in the first place because they're not really hydrogen products, they're scam products.
Yeah.
But a legitimate hydrogen bottle that is using a proton exchange membrane that has been validated by H2 Analytics to meet the IHSA certifications and standards is what you should buy. And they will never lose potency in 6 months. In fact, you will have that bottle for years. It will provide you excellent hydrogen. This bottle produces over 6 parts per million at 10 minutes, 8 parts per million at 20 minutes. And so you have this. We have another unit that's a half a gallon battery operated. So for
That's
your whole
cool.
family, you can buy something once and have it for 5 years and not have to spend another penny. And so this is the part that bugs me because I don't have a problem with people selling tablets because we just introduced what's the beginning of a line of products that is stick packs called it's a hydrogen and prebiotic.
Oh, cool.
It tastes like crisp, fresh apple. Like if you just cut an apple in your kitchen, the smell of that, if it's a good
Hmm.
apple, you have that in this product and it tastes amazing. People are like, whoa, that has such an amazing taste to it. It's like a fresh apple I just cut. And it has, you'll get almost 6 parts per million of hydrogen and a prebiotic. And so that has been amazing. But you shouldn't be buying that from a cost perspective. You should be buying this for hydrogen water. The reason we created something else wasn't to make hydrogen water, it was to make hydrogen and a prebiotic to help your stomach. We're already helping your intestinal tract and your stomach with hydrogen, but now we're adding effective prebiotics in there to help them seed the gut and help their gut as well. And
Yeah.
so, I don't have an issue with people selling hydrogen products, but they shouldn't trash something else with false information, and
Yeah.
that's kind of where I'm at with it. I think hydrogen is excellent for people, and everyone should be using it because 97% of the population have some level of gut dysfunction. So everyone needs to get hydrogen back in the body, and they will notice a difference in performance, a difference in mental acuity, a difference in cognitive function, a difference in mitochondrial function, performance, whatever it is, and they should be trying it.
How does someone know that they're buying a scam from, let's just say, Amazon? They go on Amazon, they type in hydrogen bottles. I mean, what's a key factor to look for? Because I wouldn't know, right? Unless I met you
Price.
and we did this podcast. Okay, price. So
Price.
so like, where's the
If it's
threshold
less
there?
if it's less than $150, it's 99% chance it is not a proton exchange membrane product. It is a electrolysis product, which means you're creating chlorine. And unfortunately, I've had so many people come to our space at a booth and go, I bought this bottle for $300. And I said, that's not a hydrogen bottle, that's electrolysis. Well, how would I know that? And I said, oh, here, let me reach in my bag and grab a chlorine reagent. And you put some of your water in this little cup here, and I'll put some chlorine reagent, and it turned bright yellow. And they're like, where did that come from? And I said, your bottle is making chlorine.
Oh my gosh.
That's horrible. And so understand that that will never happen. So then I took water from ours and put it in there, clear.
Yeah.
No chlorine. So here's the catch 22 with electrolysis based product. And remember, it's no different than the machines. The
Hmm.
machines will get scale buildup. The electrolysis bottles will get scale buildup. Electrolysis also makes acid water and alkaline at the same time. So when you're making that water and it's both are going in, you have ozone, you have chlorine, you have hydrogen. The problem is you're not producing a ton of hydrogen. If you put And here's the catch 22. If you put filtered water that has minerals in it, you'll create a little bit of hydrogen, oxygen, chlorine, ozone, all kinds of stuff in there. If you use purified water that doesn't have a bunch of contaminants like reverse osmosis or distilled, it won't do anything
Hmm.
because it has
Interesting.
no minerals to for electrolysis to react. So it's a catch 22. You won't have anything beneficial, or you'll have everything caustic. So
Hmm.
the bottles are just scam products. They're horrible in their design. They should never be used. And it's just China dumping crap on the market of American consumers who haven't taken the time to be properly educated. Those bottles cost around about $10, and you can find them as low as $50 and $60 on Amazon or Alibaba. It is not something you should ever put in your body. This, for example, cost us 7 times that to make, just to make it, not to get it here into our warehouse. And the year and a half of development, the patents, all the cost of the patent, all the stuff that we put in.
Hmm.
This bottle, raw cost in the Philippines. So we don't make this in China. We make this in the Philippines in our own facility. and we're cutting costs to do that. It's 6, 7 times the cost to produce, and we produce 1,000 units a day
Wow.
just to keep up with demand. So
Wow.
understand that the price is how you know, but also on the bottom of our device, right
Mm.
here, is a port where O2, O3, and Cl2 come out if it's in the if it's in the water. So oxygen, chlorine, anything that would be comes out. That's a port. When I push this button, which it's not really a button, but let's say it's a touch screen here.
Yeah.
Come on, hold on, my camera's being funny. So here you go.
Yep.
If I slide this up and push that, okay, when you turn this, can you see the bubbles?
Yep. Yep. I can.
Those are purely hydrogen
Wow.
because oxygen's coming out here at the bottom. And so
Man.
that you don't have in an electrolysis based product. Everything's going in together and combining, and who knows what you got. It's an experiment every time. But
Yeah.
this you can chart. You can know 100% you only have H2 gas going inside, and it's predictable what you're producing. Now this is
Yeah.
a smart bottle, so it actually has an app where you can record how much water you're drinking, how much hydrogen you're getting. You can tell it I want it to run at noon and then 2 and then 4. You can set up a schedule where it will run on its own, just keep water in it. And this you can
Wow.
use reverse osmosis and distilled and filtered water and still have hydrogen water at the end. And so this is the only legitimate product. Even someone was telling me yesterday they went on Chat GPT and typed in what is the best hydrogen, and it said Echo Flask. And I was like, yes, Chat GPT, way to go.
I
So
love that.
I know, long story short, don't be scammed. Don't get sucked in by the low price, because people go on our website and are like, yeah, it tastes like swamp water. I had to buy your bottle anyways, and they won't even take this back. Of course they won't take it back. They're probably in Singapore or somewhere. They don't even know where they are. They're just selling you something. The other big question we get is people say, why do you use plastic instead of glass?
Mm.
We cannot use glass. This pressurizes to 64 psi, and we've tested it up to 200 psi.
It'd break the
Glass
glass.
would shatter. Yeah, glass would shatter, and we love our customers. We don't want to have glass shattering, and so, and honestly, and we have people that have bought other bottles that are glass, and they post pictures on our Facebook page of their bottles shattered, and
Jeez.
so we don't want that. So that's another way to know if it's a glass bottle. It's not hydrogen. It's electrolysis. There is no hydrogen one out there that's really making appropriate hydrogen. The other
Yeah.
thing to understand is we are using the highest quality plastic that does not have any BPAs, BPBs. It doesn't have any microplastics, nanoplastics in it. It doesn't have any of that stuff. It's PPSU. If you do the research, it's an excellent, healthy plastic for plastic. I still love glass, but in this kind of a bottle, we can't do glass, and so we have
Yeah. Right.
chosen the best quality plastic we can. So those are the questions people ask a lot.
Yeah.
And then they
Yeah. I'm.
also ask how much hydrogen I need to get, or can I get too much hydrogen? There's all these questions people ask.
Well, that was my next question. Yeah. Is there a way to like? Well, because I've heard, and I'd love for you to correct me if I'm wrong, that there is such thing as consuming too many things that reduce, oxidative stress. They have all their antioxidants in them. Just like there's such thing as eating too much fruit and having too much of that, even though it's healthier. So, is there such thing as consuming too much antioxidants, or in this case, hydrogen?
Okay, so yes and no.
Okay.
Antioxidants, you should never be taking a lot of antioxidants in your life, because the 12 studies I reviewed of people taking high amounts of antioxidant, they ended up with cancer.
Okay. Explain, because I'm fascinated.
So when we say something's an antioxidant, by definition, that is an electron donor.
Okay.
right? So that's what people think of when we say something is an antioxidant. It has an electron donor. The problem is once it's donated its electron, it becomes a pro-oxidant.
Hmm.
So it becomes a problem in the body. So if you're taking a ton of antioxidants, you got a ton of pro-oxidants that are in your body and it's causing problems. Hydrogen, the reason hydrogen became so incredibly sought after was because in 2009, when Nature published the study that hydrogen was a selective antioxidant, it is not an electron donor. Hydrogen is neutral. So
Hmm.
H2 doesn't have an extra electron to donate. It's a signal modulator. So it's modulating pathways in the body to create an antioxidant effect, but it's not does not work like a traditional antioxidant. So you can use it with chemotherapy. You can use it with any drug. You can interact with drugs with no problem. You can do any modality and hydrogen will not cause a problem, number one. Number two, hydrogen is a selective antioxidant, which what that means is it is only reacting with reactive oxygen species that are damaging to cells. They're called cytotoxic oxygen radicals. So they're cell damaging oxygen radicals like hydroxyl radicals,
Hmm.
superoxide, things like this that are problematic in the body. And that particular study from Nature Medicine in 2009 particularly focused on hydroxyl radicals, which is the most cell damaging radical in the human body, typically in the mitochondria, which is causing a decrease in energy production. And so hydrogen is a selective antioxidant. It is not an electron donor. And so you don't have any of the negatives you would have with taking antioxidants. But to your point of your question, taking traditional antioxidants in mass would be very bad.
Hmm. Okay.
So I don't recommend that at all, and it can be problematic to your health. And so whoever told you that was correct, but that doesn't relate to hydrogen because hydrogen's not a traditional antioxidant.
Okay. Gotcha. Now, what about eating foods? Well, I don't want to get you into a topic maybe you're not comfortable answering, but like, what about eating foods that, like, say blueberries, for instance? Blueberries,
I think
antioxidants.
blueberries are amazing.
Yeah. I mean, so is it, so you do more so have to be careful of consuming like
That's different.
supplements?
That so blueberries and fruits have an ORAC level, and that's different than an antioxidant. If you're taking antioxidants, blueberries, vegetables, those are very different
Yeah.
in
The
the
way nature
body.
intended it.
Yeah, and I mean, I remember being a kid and we used to go blueberry picking, and I'd eat as much as I picked. I'd like mouthful and then in the bucket, mouthful, bucket. I was like, it's 50% tax. So the reality is, blueberries are amazing for so many different reasons. Phytonutrients are what is beneficial for fat reduction, for having like coconut oil and berries
Hmm.
and things between the MCT oils and phytonutrients. That's how we actually get ketone production in the body and can be very good for using fat for energy and what have you. But
Right.
I think that eating berries are great. I think that cutting sugar down is great. I don't even think carbs are a problem.
Same.
I think that we have a problem in this country because of pesticides and because of contaminants that we've put in food to save costs. But thank goodness Bobby Kennedy is going to, work to clean up all that mess and make America healthy again. And so the reality is, you go to Italy, which is where my family's from. We're eating pasta over there. I mean, I don't think it's any shock to anyone that Italians are eating pasta, and pasta are carbs. And you go look at Italian people; they're beautiful. We don't have an obesity rate in Italy like we
Yeah.
do in the U.S. We don't have the health problems. They actually stopped the vaccination programs in Italy real quick because they're like, we see a problem, Will Rogers. So the bottom line is we should be eating like we put fuel in our car. We're not putting fuel in the car at midnight when it's sitting in the garage when it's already full. We're
Yeah.
not putting more fuel than needed, but that's the way we eat. We eat more than we need because we're eating to comfort ourselves. We're eating to soothe our emotions and our fears and our stress and our anger management. And that's
Yeah.
a lot of the reason people are eating. And so I think we have to use some common sense that sugar is supposed to be part of desserts only, and that doesn't even have to be at every meal, right? It should be
Right.
sparingly. And and some people don't eat after dark when the sun goes down. That's sometimes hard in our society because we do have electricity. And it doesn't seem like it's dark because the lights are all on. So I would say probably one of the most important things to do is to eat organic. Most of your things that would have pesticides in them.
Mm-hmm.
I think that eating organic, non-GMO foods are important for health. And my diet's probably 85% organic, non-GMO. It's not 100 because I'm not, perfect here. But
Same.
I do travel and it gets difficult sometimes. And so I do what I do, but I do make wise choices when I'm in a restaurant. Is that fish wild caught? I
Mm-hmm.
may not be able to eat organic, but I can eat a wild caught piece of fish, or I can eat something that, is grass fed beef, or I can do whatever. It doesn't necessarily have to be organic, it can be somewhat close to being clean. So I think that foods are important, but I'll be honest, Kyle, foods are not as toxic as relationships.
Oof. That is a very good point. Yeah, the stress that comes from a toxic relationship will absolutely wreak havoc on your life.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. What made you say that though?
I don't know because I don't think people understand. I think people focus a lot on food and they eat foods, but they don't understand that their stress and their relationships are doing far more harm to them medically than food would.
Yeah. Yeah, that's like the age old, like the woman who smokes for 90 years, but she like was never stressed about anything and she's perfectly
Right.
healthy, and you're like,
Right.
how? And then you have someone else who did like dotted all the i's, crossed all the t's, but they were stressed about dotting all the i's and crossing
Yeah.
all the t's, and they get sick. Like, wait a second, what's happening?
Right. Well, funny you say that. When I did my dissertation on longevity, I didn't listen to all the podcasts and I didn't listen to all the people's ideas about what causes longevity. I went and studied centenarians. So let's cut the crap and let's say I'm going to go study some people that live past 100. If I want to learn about longevity, what did they do?
Mm-hmm.
And part of it's genetics, but what I found is that there is no diet, there is no religion, there is no place that they all lived that caused them to live forever or whatever. They all had a healthy gut.
Interesting.
And that was the one thing I found that was the same is that their intestinal environment was healthy, because
Yeah.
some people were smoking and they were centenarians. Some people were say, hey, you got to drink every day. Some people are like, you got to have ice cream every day. Some people were like, you got to go to the coffee shop and be with friends. Most people were saying that, not coffee shop, but you got to have good relationships with friends. Many people in that group, of the 4,000 centenarians that were in that group, they all said you needed some sort of higher power. Whatever that was different. A lot of them
Mm.
said you need to have friendships and people that you communicate with. Every one of them went outside daily, even if it's just to walk around the block or to work in their little garden or something. They did it. They had meaningful relationships in their life, not toxic relationships, meaningful relationships. But their diets and their religion, it was all different.
Fascinating.
Yeah.
Really fascinating.
And I'm not saying, we need to give up on religion. I think religion is critical. And I think having a higher power and looking outside yourself and having gratitude and vitamin L, love, and all these kind of things are important
Yeah.
to our health. We are not designed to be lonely. We are not
Hmm.
designed to feel anxious. We are not designed to feel hurt all the time. And we can choose to forgive. If I was to say, what is the biggest health hack no one talks about? It is getting good at forgiveness.
Man, that's yeah. Yeah, I would agree with that.
Learn how to be good at forgiving others without regard what they're doing to you. You can choose to forgive. Doesn't mean you hang out with them for them to keep on hurting you, but you can forgive because you're freeing yourself.
Hmm.
And I will tell you, years ago, I had to become good at forgiveness because I realized someone very close to me in my family that is the last person on earth that should harm someone harmed me. And I learned about it till years later. And I was like, oh my gosh, why would she do that to me? And I just, at the end of the day, I said, my only choice is to forgive her because
Yeah.
I clearly can't go have a conversation. Hey, why'd you do that? Like, she's going to come up with an answer like, well, you know, my son, I this. It's like, no, there's never a legitimate reason. There's there's never a legitimate reason why people harm other people. I mean, when you listen to people that harm other people, they give a reason, and you could say, "Wow, if I would thought that way, I might think that was rational or whatever." But it's not, right? Like, and
Right.
so we can learn to forgive others and move on and away from harm, because abuse is never appropriate
Yeah.
at all. We should never abuse other people, and we should never be abused. But we can forgive people that have abused us. And there are people that do horrible, horrific things to each other. And I'm saying you can forgive them because that doesn't change who you are, other than it frees you so you don't keep paying the price for their evil actions
Yeah.
medically yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. Bitterness will really hurt you. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Let's end with this. I'd love to. This has been awesome. Mind altering for me. I've really enjoyed this. I've already been a
Um,
believer in the hydrogen, but this has just been so cool to get an in-depth look into all this stuff. But what's what's the most important thing, or what's the most important thing you'd like to leave with the audience that I didn't ask you? Something a little nugget, a little whatever that you would love for them to have at the end of this podcast.
well, I think we just talked about that. That would be the nugget is learn how to forgive. It doesn't take away from who you are. It
Mm,
just makes you healthier and
yeah.
have better self love. Um, and from a hydrogen perspective, try it. It will change your life. I'm telling you right now, there's very few people on this planet that have appropriate hydrogen production. We'll call it fart therapy now that you've learned farts are good. We'll call it fart therapy. But the reality is, you need to get hydrogen in your life. If you have a loved one, like I did, who is suffering, try hydrogen. When I train doctors, I tell them get hydrogen water into the person's life and then see what's left and fix that.
Mm,
It's a lot easier than symptom chasing, which is what most people are doing today. And you can spend years symptom chasing because things are going to move around and change and this and that. Most of what supplements do, hydrogen does naturally. When we talk about nitric oxide, when we talk about peptides, when we talk about what coffee's doing to increase energy, there was a study on coffee versus hydrogen water, and hydrogen water won by 10%. I mean, I'm telling you
wow.
all, hydrogen is supposed to be in your body because it modulates every pathway you could possibly imagine. We have elite athletes. We have football teams, soccer teams. We have basketball players that are elite basketball players, pro basketball players. using our water, the Dodgers, for example, the Raiders, all these, the UFC Apex has our machine at UFC. Dana White loves all these people that you look up to are using our water. The number one tennis player in the world, Ronaldo, the soccer player, has all of our systems in his home, right? Tom Brady loves Echo Water. I mean, all of these individuals that are high performing individuals are using Echo Water. And guess what? They're not crazy. They're smart. They're doing something because at the end of the day, we spend a lot of money on a lot of things that are gone in 24 hours, like a dinner. It's gone the next day, but this will be there for you 5 years later, working, functioning, changing your life. So you're spending money on things today that are not improving your health. Just do a 1 day fast, save all that money, and put it into a hydrogen bottle. And at the end of the day, you can go, well, if it doesn't work, I would have spent that money on food that day anyways. I ended up fasting and created some stem cells and helped my body. But what if what I'm saying is true? And what if hydrogen water can actually help you with your issues that you're experiencing today or your loved ones are experiencing? That would be the best decision you ever made.
Yeah. You know, I just thought of this as you were talking. In my devotionals, it was talking about how, there were three options that people had with how they thought about Jesus.
Yeah.
And it was either he's a liar, he's a lunatic,
Yeah.
or he's actually right.
Right.
And so for people out there listening, you can kind of use that of like, do
Yeah.
you think Paul's a liar? Do you think he's a lunatic? Or
Right.
could he possibly be right? And it's like, well, when you look at it like that, it seems to make a little more sense.
Yeah, and I can tell you, it's been thousands of years for Christ. He's still going strong. A lot of people doing what he says, and it actually works. Like, I don't know, forgiveness, loving other people, not killing folks, not committing adultery. Like, these are all healthy things. I don't know why they hate him so much because the things he said to do are pretty good for society. I
Agree.
I love Christ. I am definitely love Christ. He's amazing, and I would tell you, I've been doing this for many years. 16 years, Echo has been alive. If it was not helping people, you'd have heard about that for sure. That'd have been on the news. But the fact that there's 75 studies on diabetes and hydrogen and 125 studies on cancer with hydrogen and 22 studies on Parkinson's with cancer, that you don't hear on the news. But if I was making something that was a scam, you'd have heard about that on the news. I promise you.
100%. Love this. Really, really, really thankful for your time. This has been a joy for me. I think people will get a ton out of this. Where can someone find you via social media or even your product? Where's the best place to go for both those?
So Echo Water, ECHO water.com is where you can find the products, where you can do the studies. Years ago, I created a website, hydrogenstudies.com. You can go to hydrogenstudies with an S.com and research. Just type in any organ disease model right into the search bar, and it will bring up the studies that relate to your topic. Please go do research. Please think of those that you love and you don't want suffering. And then echowater.com is where you can purchase the products on. And social media, we're on all the stuff, Facebook, Instagram, all of that kind of stuff. X, we're all there. And if you look up Echo Hydrogen Water, typically that's where we're at. I do have a page on LinkedIn and I have a page on Instagram and Facebook, but I never do anything. The stuff that's there is when people post podcasts and then they connect me to it and I post that onto my page. But I don't do a lot of social media. But Dr. Paul Barattiero is on Instagram. You can go and connect and follow because then every podcast I do, which will be 3 this week alone, will be on there and you can see them. And so please do that. Maybe someday when I, want everyone to know when I'm doing whatever, I'll put that stuff on there. But typically I haven't gotten to that mental place where I don't want to share everything I do, but I do want to help people. I want to love and lift people and serve people. So they can go on Facebook. I do have a page there. They can go on Instagram and then LinkedIn. Those are pretty much where I'm at.
Cool. Awesome. Love it. Yeah. And I'll,
Yeah,
I'll
thank
link,
you.
Yeah, I'll link your Instagram into the show notes, and the website in the show notes as well. So, again,
Awesome.
thank you, man, so much. This has been
Yeah,
awesome. It's been a pleasure to meet you. You
my
guys out
pleasure.
there listening, watching, thank you for tuning in. Feel free to reach out to Paul, reach out to myself, and as always, you guys keep moving forward.